and friends, it's time once more for In Other News. And it's Summer School Edition, getting ready to kick off the summer school fun starting tomorrow. It is today, Sunday, May 20th, tomorrow, Monday, May 21st, summer school. Session 1 will be kicking off some world regions, and it will be telecast, by the way. Live stream, if you're interested in seeing that. It's going to be at 11 o'clock a.m. every day, and it'll be recorded, and I think Katie's going to put it up on iTunes. It's our experiment, our foray into a hybrid class where we have people in the class that I'm lecturing to, but we're also recording and live streaming it out simultaneously. So if you're interested in that, by all means, holler at me or KP, the technological wizard when it comes to these things. But we're here for some In Other News for right now, and this is a little past due. I kind of intentionally waited. It's still early, but I want to talk about the French president in other news today. Who, what? I mean, we love to make fun of the Frenchies. It is one of my pastimes that I've had for decades. And they went to the polls and elected a new president just a couple weeks ago. I know you've at least heard about it in passing. I've talked about it in another podcast. Or as early as like January, I was talking about how I thought a change was going to occur in French politics, and indeed it did. The guy who just got elected is one François Hollande. Hollandaise. Let's call him Hollandaise sauce. Can you get more French than François? And François is center-left, socialist, European socialist, which isn't as hardcore socialist as, say, Hugo Chavez socialist. But, you know, definitely center-left. If he was in America, he would be in the Democratic Party. And, in fact, that's what I'm going to talk about in other news today was, what's the U.S. take on this Hollande guy, particularly U.S. President Barack Obama's take? Because Hollande won office a few weeks ago. He just was inaugurated on May 15th. I think that's like a week ago. He's only been in office a week. And here this dude is jet-setting already, and not really ruffling feathers, but making it quite clear that the French are taking a whole new direction in financial, economic, fiscal, military, and social policy in a very big way, as would be predicted since Hollande is center-left and he just took over from Nicolas Sarkozy, a center-right guy, more conservative guy. And in fact, French politics has been dominated by the center-right for most of the modern era since World War II, if memory serves. And certainly the last 15 years have been a center-right candidate. Conservative guys have been in the presidency of France for some time. So this is kind of a marked departure. And his policies, at least the ones he's saying he's going to enact, are pretty radical different. And we need to talk about them, at least for a few minutes, and how they affect, say, the U.S. and President Barack Obama. So this guy said this guy's jet-setting, and he is. I inaugurated a week ago. First week in office, first day in office, I think. I think right after the inauguration, he got on a plane to go visit German Chancellor Angela Merkel. Merkelicious. And his plane was struck by lightning. I guess that's a good omen for your first day in office. I don't know. Nothing happened. They turned the plane around. He went and got another plane and went and visited Merkel because, of course, the French-German connection is the most important relationship in Europe and one of the most important relationships on planet Earth, since the Franco-German alliance is kind of the central axis of the whole European Union, Eurozone experiment. And no one in the world wants a situation where the French and the Germans aren't talking to each other or pissed off at each other. And we're kind of close right now. Why is that? How's that affecting what's going on in other parts of the planet, namely the U.S.? Well, the Germans, of course, are under Chancellor Merkel's leadership, have kicked off these austerity measures. They are big savers. They are pretty thrifty people, and we're talking about the whole country. Germany's rich. It's been propping up the Eurozone and really propping up all of the European economy ever since things started to go south several years ago. So Germany, of course, has a really huge voice in what's going to happen in terms of economic and fiscal policy across all of Europe. And the German response has been, save more. Austerity measures. Stop spending. All you people are broke. All you governments are broke. You need to slash programs, stop spending, balance budgets. That's the path forward that the Germans want and have been pushing for. And former President Nicolas Sarkozy, a conservative himself, had been going along with that. Much to the chagrin, of course, the socialist and center-left people across France. And France is kind of, one of the reasons we make fun of them is they are kind of a socialist state in terms of people get tons of benefits, perhaps too many benefits. People retire early. The work week is shorter than most other places. And quite frankly, many of us think that the French state's going to go broke because there's not enough people working to support all of the benefits they give out. But that's perhaps a side story for another time. But I do want you to understand the difference between these two guys, the guy who was in power and the guy who now is in power in France. And so, of course, Holland gets on a plane to go visit Merkel because he, during his whole election, was saying, hey, by the way, we probably are going to back off all those austerity measures that my former president, Sarkozy, was agreeing to. We, that is now, current French President François Hollande, says, we don't think austerity is the way. We don't think cutting budgets is the way to get out of this economic mess we're in. We think stimulus is the way. Ah ha ha ha! Oh, that's the opposite of austerity. Austerity means slash budgets and save money in order to get back on track. And fiscal stimulus means we need to spend money to get the economy going and growing and getting bigger and provide jobs so more people are making more money and spending more money. And that's how we'll get out of this economic mess. They really are two absolutely polar opposite viewpoints on how to get out of economic trouble. And now I'm bringing it back home. What do you think Barack Obama thinks about that? I always want to make it real for you here in the United States. And whenever this guy was running, one would have thought, one would have assumed that a center-left Democratic president in the United States would have supported a center-left socialist presidency in France. But that really wasn't the case. The U.S., Barack Obama especially, kind of just sat on his hands and hasn't really said much about it because they're a little worried that if the turmoil does get created between France and Germany, between the center-right and center-left governments of Germany and France, that if Europe's economy goes further south and sucks more, it could cause turbulence that will be felt over in America, and then that will suck for the American economy, and that will suck for U.S. President Barack Obama's chances for re-election. See how all this shit is going on? All these tendrils connecting each other. That's globalization, man. Anyway, let me get it back. I'm getting too far off track on grander economics on planet Earth, but it all is connected. So here's President Barack Obama, who initially has not really supported Holland, but now kind of is. Because as it makes sense, Barack Obama's policy is, yes, we need to have more fiscal stimulus to get out of the economic mess that the U.S. is in. And the U.S. government, under his guidance, and actually former President George Bush as well, has spent tons of money to stimulate the economy, fiscal stimulus. Barack Obama, of course, bailed out car companies to stimulate the economy, to keep those jobs. So, and of course, the Republicans in the United States are all raging, going, oh no, we need to slash the budget and spend nothing and get rid of welfare and all the other stuff. Again, two polar opposite ways of looking at how to solve an economic problem. So, now it all of a sudden appears that Barack Obama, who just met with François Hollande, has been like, okay, maybe we do have some stuff in common, and maybe we should talk more openly. And that's exactly what happened, because about 5 minutes ago I said President Hollande of France has been like a jet setter right from the get-go. He's been in office 1 week. He went to Germany immediately, met with Merkel. I don't know that it went that well, but then he got on a plane a couple days ago to come to America. Woohoo! Land of the free, baby! Welcome, Lafayette, and welcome, François Hollande. And he's here because they had a big G8 summit. The Great Eight, the Group of Eight summit, went down on Friday, Saturday. And that's followed by a NATO summit in Chicago that's going on tomorrow and the next day. So all the big leaders are here. The G8 summit has already happened. The NATO summit's getting ready to go down. And I wanted to touch upon both of these meetings in terms of French President Hollande's opinions of what's going on. And it ties into some of the stuff I've already now talked about. At the G8 summit, François Hollande came out openly and said, here's the deal. I said it in my campaign, and I'm saying it now as president. We need stimulus to get France out of trouble. Yes, we know this is going to piss off the Germans, and Angela Merkel was not a happy camper at the G8 summit. And Hollande says we need to spend more, get programs on track, and one of the things he's proposed, and you're going to hear about this a lot in other news in the coming weeks, is he has suggested that they have Eurobonds. Eurobonds is an idea that people have talked about. The Germans are very much against it. Nine to Eurobonds. And the whole concept is that Holland's going to propose to the whole Eurozone is, hey, here's the deal. We need Eurobonds. That is, we need to be able to lend money based on the euro currency. And all of the banks should get together and say, okay, we, the European banks, mostly the Germans, German Central Bank, but also the Central Bank of Europe, you guys should lend money under the Eurobond thing to governments all across the Eurozone. Lend them money for projects. Lend them money to build roads. Lend them money to, I don't know, build schools. Lend them money to do whatever at a reduced rate, reduced interest rate. Again, for economic fiscal stimulus. Put some money out there so that governments can borrow that money for cheaper and do stuff with it to put their people to work. Again, I'm not promoting it as like, I'm a leftist too, let's do this. I want you to understand this guy's position, what he's pushing for, and why it's kind of new. The Germans have said, no, austerity first. And now we got this guy, Holland, who's saying, no, we should spend more and encourage economic development, and that will help us get going again. And it sounds like Barack Obama is now on his team. At the G8 summit, Barack said, hey, that sounds like a good idea. We want you guys growing because guess what? That's what we've been doing here. We've been providing fiscal stimulus to our economy to get it growing, to get out of trouble. So it looks like we may have brothers in arms forming up between the United States and France. And by the way, Nicolas Sarkozy was no enemy of the United States, but very different policies than Barack Obama. So it looks like economic fiscal policy is aligning between the U.S. and France right now. It's still early yet, by the way. This guy could be a total failure as a president, but I'm actually betting on him. I'm thinking he's gonna get some support. Having the United States back you up is a good start, and he's got that now. And of course, countries like Greece and maybe even Italy are gonna support this too, because they're tired of austerity measures. Most of Europe is getting tired of austerity measures. Like, dude, we're all going broke. We can't keep doing this. We don't have jobs. We're all suffering, and so it could be that François Hollande becomes a rallying point for lots of center-left socialists, but just people in general across Europe. Barack Obama's already on his team, so that's perhaps good for him. Now, what else was talked about, or that I want you to know in other news? One of the reasons why the U.S. government was not jumping for joy when Hollande won the election is that while they might now agree with him for fiscal and economic policy, military and international policy is still a big question mark. And in fact, Hollande may very well disagree with most U.S. bigger schemes on planet Earth when it comes to the military. And I do want you to know this. I'm going to wrap this up here very quickly. Hollande's France, new president, François Hollande's France, is going to definitely retract out of the global limelight when it comes to conflict and face-offs and use of military. There's no doubt about that. He promised that in his campaign, and he reiterated it at the G8 yesterday, much to the chagrin of Barack Obama and probably all other NATO folks. And of course, they're getting ready to go to a NATO meeting in Chicago tomorrow, where Hollande is going to say it again. And what has he said? He has said that all French troops will be pulled out of active military zones in Afghanistan by year's end. What year? This year. 2012, the Frenchies are gone out of Afghanistan. It's not a shocker. It's not that big a deal, but it still hurts. It still stings a little bit because the U.S. and NATO as a unit have been trying desperately to get everybody to rally, to stay in the game, to stick together, and try to see out this Afghan mission, and it just has not been that popular. It hasn't been popular in Europe. Most Germans don't want German troops there. Most Italians don't want Italian troops there, and most French don't want French troops there, and Hollande has just said, guess what? We're pulling out. This is also important because under former President Nicolas Sarkozy, he had been much more assertive and much more hawkish than the French have been since, I don't know, the French Revolution. We make fun of the French for being a history of cheese-eating surrender monkeys. And quite frankly, they have not been that engaged in NATO for most of their modern history. And they really haven't done that much on the international sphere in most of modern history. But when Sarkozy took over, that changed. Sarkozy brought France back into the limelight, back into the central leadership of NATO. Sarkozy has pledged and promised troops to all NATO measures since he was in office for 8 years, and they did. That's why there's French troops in Afghanistan. And the French, along with the British, were the ones who pushed really hard for the invasion of Libya. all that's going to change. It could be that new French President Hollande may say, yeah, we're pulling out of Afghanistan, and I already know that's going to piss off all you people in NATO, and guess what? I don't care, because maybe, too, I'm going to pull France back out of the central leadership of NATO. It's entirely possible. It is more of the French tradition to not be a huge player in NATO, so you could see that going down. And I'll end with this note. We don't really know. He has promised to pull out troops. I think there's no doubt that's going to happen, and that's going to be not embarrassing, but yet another chink in the armor of the United States' mission in Afghanistan. That's definitely going to happen. Will he pull France out of NATO top leadership? I don't know. Possibly. However, it's still a question mark because he has not really stated exactly how strongly he feels about Syria. And that's something that the NATO group is going to be talking about in Chicago this week, is what to do about Syria. Should there be another U.S., NATO, UN intervention in Syria? And most of the statements that Hollande has made up to this point have kind of supported, yes, something should be done about Syria. But the question is, what? How active will the French role be in that? How active will the French role be in NATO? How active will the French role be in the world, period, in a France that's going broke, that's socially troubled, that has a lot of cultural friction with immigration and Islam in particular, and it's just a mess right now, and they have a new president who's coming in with a new viewpoint on economics, on fiscal policy, on military policy, and internationalism, and we're going to see how this new president does in the coming months and years. I actually am going to go ahead and throw out a generalized bet. I'm betting on him. I'm betting on him to change, and I don't even know why I'm betting on him. I just think the French people are ready for a change, and their country's going to hell in a handbasket, and it seems like they need to rally around something, and it could be this shift gets them to rally in a very big way. I don't know. I'm thinking a rally is getting ready to occur in France, and what that will mean to the world, who knows? But they need to do something, because France is hurting and Europe in general is hurting, and lots of other things that we'll be following. But that's all I got for now. Hope you learned a little bit something about France, about their new president, François Hollande, and his viewpoints and policies, repercussions on U.S. and NATO policies. But that's all for now. We're out.